The podcast you're listening to is part of the Second Union Podcast Network. You can listen, like, and subscribe to all our podcasts by heading over to wearesecondunion.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to the X-Perts, your exceptional guides to all things X-Men. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
I am Jesse.
We are doing this show in conjunction with Second Union. For more of the latest headlines and entertainment, please go to our website at wearesecondunion.com. Well, Joanna, you missed a long discussion regarding the Inferno storyline. And it was amazing how often it crossed over with things we've discussed before. The preamble to Inferno turned out to be where Candy Southern was finally killed in the comic books and Archangel beheaded Cameron Hodge.
Mm-hmm.
It was also where Magneto rejoined the ranks of the Villainous after leaving behind the New Mutants and sticking around with the Hellfire Club.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also the point where Jean Grey got her first taste of the Phoenix Force after Madeline Pryor passed away.
Ah.
As well as everybody fighting to save young baby Nathan Summers, who would be known later in comic books as Cable.
Right.
Yeah. It hit a lot of strange notes. Actually, I just found out today that apparently one of the characters who debuted in one of the Inferno tie-ins is going to make a Marvel Cinematic debut.
Oh, really? The one you were showing us?
Yeah, according to the lead actor in the Shang-Chi movie, he just found out that a character known as WizKid is going to be in his film. And he had to look up who that character was. And it just turns out we were discussing that because he debuted in an Inferno tie-in called The Exterminators.
Mm.
He's a mutant who had the ability to transmute anything he touched. Basically, it's like he was a kid in a wheelchair. If he grabbed onto the handles of his wheelchair and concentrate, he can turn into a helicopter chair or a jet chair. Things like that. Except he was also a really studied kid. He was a technical genius, so he tended to think in terms of, like, technology. But if that character's appearing in the movies, there's a real question as to how mutants are going to debut in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It sounds really strangely similar to a plan I posted online about introducing X-Men piecemeal in the back of other films, rather than just dedicate a string of movies similar to the Avengers.
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
It's kind of weird how this is shaking out, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wonder if they go with the idea of making their first villain the Juggernaut.
That would be really cool, but apparently Marvel did some additional reshoots on the New Mutants film, which is supposed to debut in April, I think. And it sounds like they may have tried to incorporate parts of it into the MCU. In addition, there's also rumors that a mutant will show up in either the WandaVision series or the Falcon and Winter Soldier series on Disney+. So it really does sound like the same kind of broad strokes idiocy I typed out in Facebook so long ago. It's really creepy.
Maybe you should look at who's seen it.
Yeah, like I'm that technically proficient. I think you're overestimating. I work on a podcast, for crying out loud. You think I'm smart? Come on, dude.
I mean, you do our editing.
You think I'm smart? Come on.
I mean, you have skills that I don't have.
A powerbomb is not useful here.
Neither is archery, but here we are.
And yet I fear you, so what does that tell you? Actually, archery is highly useful. That's how Hawkeye started.
Yeah, also it's quiet, and that's how you'd pick off zombies from a distance in event of apocalypse. Everyone should brush up on their
Ooh, zombie
skills.
killing and instant kebabs. Nice.
Right? And arrows are easier to make than bullets. Let's just put that out there.
Okay,
So
this
it's
is getting
quieter.
uncomfortable. We should move forward. Now, while you were gone, we had a short discussion as to what character to do next, and I proposed something relatively off the wall for something of this nature, because I chose a character who wasn't used terribly long in the X-Men comics. And that character is Miranda Leevald, also known as Stacy X.
Which barely registers on the Geiger counter of my X-Men knowledge, which really... I was racking my brain for any connections, honestly.
Very obscure.
I accidentally read her entire run, and it wasn't something I tried to do, but the character came and went so quickly that I always felt there was a lot of unanswered questions and potential around this character. And she feels even more relevant to current storylines in 2020 because she didn't start out as a superhero, an accident of science, or somebody even with altruistic intentions. Do you know what her origin is?
No, I don't.
Okay, Miranda Leevall was created by Joe Casey and Tom Rainey, first appearing in Uncanny X-Men number 399 in November of 2001. So it wasn't even that long ago compared to a lot of other comic characters.
Okay.
She started out as a member of the X Ranch. I take it you don't know what that is.
No, I don't. I will admit that.
Okay, this is going to get a little bit edgy here because I know we're trying to do an all ages show. But Stacy X started out as a member of a Nevada brothel.
Okay.
A brothel entirely staffed by mutants. So, I think it's one of those characters that comic book fans had a lot of trouble taking seriously because, like I said, she didn't start out as like a corn-fed Nebraska boy like either Cyclops or Havoc. Wasn't a suburb girl like Jean Grey. Wasn't a rich boy like Warren Worthington. Wasn't even an unfortunate victim of circumstance like Nightcrawler was. She started out as a brothel worker, which is, even for superheroes in the 2000s, that was pushing the envelope a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think fans ever really grasped onto this character and gave it a fair chance. Because now that we know what we do know 20 years later, and how a lot of brothel workers are often forced into it because of human trafficking, or, even, mental difficulties that are undiagnosed and poorly medicated, or even as a function of choice. Sometimes it's just a woman who decides that this is the way she wants to go through life. I feel like this character could get a really good story arc and a lot of character growth today rather than 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When she first appeared, yes, it was in a Nevada mutant brothel. And it was originally attacked by an anti-mutant hate group called the Church of Humanity.
Oh, boy.
They destroyed the ranch, and not long after that, Stacy joined the X-Men. And I must preface this by saying that you probably noticed that with a real name of Miranda Leevall and a code name of Stacy X, it doesn't quite add up, right?
Yeah.
Right.
In her original appearances, Stacy X was not the name she went by. She went by X Stacy, or Ecstasy.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh.
That sounds more like a stage name.
Yeah, now part of this had to do with her appearance. She had snake-like skin. Reptilian scales all over her body. She had... there wasn't any bizarre, single appendage beneath the waist or anything. She had a pair of legs, but it was scales from hairline to toes. However, even though that added a certain amount of durability to her, that was not her mutant ability. That was a side effect of her mutation. Her original mutation is the ability to exude and control pheromones.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, I've heard references to this character.
Yeah, and with it, she could obviously affect someone's mood.
Right.
Except her powers were a little finer than that. She could actually tweak someone's pheromones to the point where she could cause their bodies to do things involuntarily. She could force someone to vomit if necessary. She could use her abilities to cause someone's own regenerative abilities to increase in moderate ways. She could create racking pain with it. Or she could create full-on illusions and not dementia, but just... completely make someone divorced from reality and able to see something false. And in addition to that, she could also read the pheromones coming off people, so she had a very fine idea as to what someone was feeling in that exact moment. There's a lot of capabilities in this character. As well as potential, as far as I'm concerned, I think there's a lot of unexplored potential in that type of ability. After Stacy X joined the X-Men, she was forthright and argumentative. And what I mean is, that didn't mean she wasn't a team player. As a matter of fact, she was the exact opposite of it. She questioned everything. which to me was pretty natural. She came from a completely different environment and suddenly finds herself on a superhero team.
Yeah.
She didn't do teamwork very well, and she actually left the X-Men not long after joining. However, she did return and played a vital role in defending the Institute from Black Tom Cassidy. You may have seen him recently in pages of X-Force. This was the period before he got better. And when I say he got better, his powers mutated to a strange degree. Remember, his original abilities is to channel energy and feel his way through, like, wood and plants. That's why he was constantly carrying a shillelagh in his early appearances, because with that ability, he could use it to fire energy blasts.
Right.
Unfortunately, his powers kicked up a couple extra notches that he didn't intend, and he started to actually turn into a plant-like creature. He actually had the appearance of something like Groot, but angrier.
Angry Groot.
Yeah.
With a goatee.
Terrifying.
However, plants are also very resilient, and he had the ability to regrow large sections of himself as they were destroyed. So he was even giving the X-Men a run for the money by himself.
Oh, wow.
Except when Stacy X returned, she used her hormonal powers to put him into a very calm, very pliable state and made him stop his attack. She stopped him by herself, more or less.
Nice.
And this gave the X-Men the opportunity they needed to defeat him. She also proved to be a pretty skilled fighter because while she didn't defeat him, she gave Wolverine a run for his money.
That's not an easy feat.
Yeah, but they never really elaborated in her short history as to where she got this training from. Did she learn it to defend herself from aggressive clientele? Was she on the streets for a significant amount of time? Was she one of those characters that was trained to do something and then got away and just found herself in different circumstances? Don't really know. Her past is very poorly explored in Marvel history. Anyway, after the attack by Black Tom, she stayed at the Institute. She took time off after, air quotes, servicing a special client in Chappaqua, New York. So she took time away from the X-Men to see a client. Wolverine actually tracked her down and fought with her. But after this, the two came to some sort of understanding. Stacy X was on a team that was being run by co-leaders Archangel, who is, peach-skinned and has his original wings back, and Nightcrawler. The Angel and the Demon are running the team.
Heh.
So,
Ironic.
Wolverine brought Stacy X back to the Institute and convinced her to stop servicing clients. At least we think so. She stopped servicing clients, but the exact nature of that agreement was unknown. Whatever she said to Wolverine, though, was strong enough that Wolverine went to Nightcrawler and convinced him not to censor Stacy for her actions. Which is kind of extreme, because Nightcrawler is a very pious person. I mean, him working with a streetwalker should really be against just about everything he stands for.
A lady of the night.
Yes. But again, Wolverine talked him out of this, and part of me questions whether or not Stacy used her hormonal powers to make Wolverine see her way of things. However, Stacy did continue to work for special clients even as she was an X-Man, but she used it as intelligence gathering to find out information on things that they needed. And what was discovered later in the comics was her version of serviced wasn't actually serviced.
Was it manipulating them to think that they were?
That's exactly what she was doing with her powers, yes.
Oh.
They thought they were having nights of ecstasy, and it turned out to be mostly Stacy X just sitting off to the side, letting them daydream whatever it was her powers were showing.
Nice.
Actually, during her membership on the X-Men, she actively tried to pursue physical relationships with both Archangel and Nightcrawler at different times. What?
I said that must have been interesting for the both of them.
It was kind of awkward for both because, again, Nightcrawler, very pious. So he was also a priest at this point, so he wasn't feeling the need for an extramarital affair. Meanwhile, this is the period of Archangel's very strange attraction to Paige Guthrie, Husk. Full-grown Nightcrawler, 16-year-old girl. They kept saying it's not physical, yet it was very loving, and it was one of those things that made comic book readers feel skeevy just for picking it up.
Awkward.
And yet here's Stacy X in the middle of it all somehow.
Not sure what to say to that.
Neither am I. However, Stacy X did develop a rapport as somebody that the X-Men could depend on. Chamber and Nightcrawler, as a result of one of their adventures, were stranded in a mountainous region. And you know who Chamber is. He's the member of Generation X whose own psionic energy blew a hole in his chest, took away his lower jaw.
I was kind of wondering how his powers worked.
The first time he tried to really use them, yeah. Okay, kind of a combination story. While Chamber is still using a physical body, he's a psi user. He's a heavy telekinetic and telepath. However, because he was so young and inexperienced and his powers are so profound, he accidentally blew a hole in himself. That's why he keeps his face wrapped up, because he doesn't have the lower half of his head. But he always used it as psionic energy blast, but if he concentrates hard enough, he can actually channel it into telepathy. That's how he generally communicates, but he doesn't try long distance most of the time. The first time he tried it was when he and Nightcrawler were abandoned in the mountains, and the only person sensitive enough to hear him was Stacy. Stacy did bring help with other X-Men, and she was also a little bit pissed with Chamber at this point. You can imagine a Lady of the Night is prone to keeping a lot of secrets and a lot of things confidential, and yet here is an extra party poking around in her head, regardless of the reason.
Yeah, that's kind of rude.
Yeah. Chamber, though, believed that Stacy X was the only one that would believe it was him actually calling out for help because his powers were still new at this point. Not a lot of people knew he was capable of long-distance communication. Gotcha. So, at a further point, Stacy X is working with a food magnate who is extremely ill. He reveals himself as a mutant with debilitating mutations. He has advanced aging, which makes him old before his time, and an unfortunate immunity to all painkillers.
Oh, no.
Damn.
Yeah. Stacy uses her hormonal powers to change his body chemistry so he can live out the rest of his short life without pain.
Well, that's nice.
Oh, wow.
Not long after this, there was a fight with Paige that was caused by the fact that both she and Stacy X were in love with Archangel. And instead of continuing a fight, believe it or not, Stacy X decides to leave the mansion. Paige had not admitted to most people that she was in love with Archangel at this time, but she couldn't keep that secret from Stacy X, who can read people's emotions as easily as most of us read our cell phones.
Of course.
However, Stacy did not go quietly. She left behind a DVD for Archangel to watch.
Uh-oh.
Of Stacy X jumping rope naked.
That's why I said ruh-oh.
Yeah, Paige never saw this DVD. However, it always sticks out of my mind because even though Stacy was long gone, Archangel is watching this video, and Nightcrawler, believe it or not, walks into his quarters and says, "What are you what?" Whoa!
Awkward.
I can't remember if this is just my sense of humor or if this actually happened, but I seem to remember Nightcrawler asking Archangel if he was feeling good about the choices he made in his life, and Archangel was just kind of questioning everything at this moment. But yeah, that's how Stacy left the X-Men. Believe it or not, she was not seen for a significant amount of time, and she showed up in a very unexpected place that has to do with another character we've already reviewed. Let me lay this out. Stacy X was one of the people who suffered from the decimation.
Oh.
Remember we talked about the Scarlet Witch and her magic 3 words of no more mutants?
Yep.
Stacy was one of the people who lost her powers. It's at this point when, after somebody identified her, that she explained that she had never actually slept with any of her clients. She just used her powers to fool them. However, because
Seems like a low-effort way to make a lot of money.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, because she lost her powers, she actually became a physical prostitute.
Well, you can't win it all.
Yeah. After this, she popped up in an interesting place under the call sign Ripcord.
Ripcord.
Yeah. She was a member of the New Mutants. Not New Mutants, excuse me. The New Warriors.
Oh, okay.
Remember we talked about what happened to Jubilee after she lost her powers? Stacy X was on that squad.
Nice.
There was no explanation as to how she ended up on that team, but the indication was that she wanted to change the course of her life, and going back to being a superhero seemed to be the best way to do that.
She could have chose a less G.I. Joe name, but...
Yeah, oddly enough, though, after Decimation, her first appearance, she still had her scaly skin, even though she didn't have her powers. When she was seen as a member of the New Warriors, she didn't even have her scaly skin anymore. Towards the end of the series, she was killed in an accident along with another character known as Skybolt.
Aww.
Now, it gets weird here because, without explanation, she popped up again in 2011 during a limited series called Vengeance. It was supposed to be the official sequel to a 1989 and 1990s crossover known as The Acts of Vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
And Stacy was having a three-way sexual encounter with a Welsh pop star called Sugarcane, which is which is an ex-girlfriend of Chamber, and a new character known as the Ultimate Nullifier. Now,
that's his code name?
Yeah. I tried looking this character up. I can't find any record of what he, or his appearances, or whom he is. The Ultimate Nullifier, previously in Marvel Comics, is a device. It is a device that Galactus apparently created and claims that it's a part of him as much as he's a part of it. It's a device that can unwind and recreate reality at the user's behest. The problem is, though, if the user is not like absolute in its focus as to what it wants as it uses a device, it stands an equal chance of erasing the user.
Oh.
It's a very risky device. Few characters have used it in Marvel Comics. Reed Richards has used it to threaten Galactus on a few occasions.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing to be taken lightly, even though it's a very bizarre little handheld device. It doesn't even look like a gun. It's just this kind of palm-sized device that has a couple switches and a thumb handle in very strange places.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I found an image of the guy.
It's kind of round and square, about the size of the palm of your hand, has this little switch that fits underneath the pinky, right?
No, not the device, the guy.
Oh, the actual Ultimate Nullifier, the character.
Oh, it's this Ultimate Nullifier, apparently.
Well,
yeah, he's a bleach blonde guy with like tribal tattoos.
I don't know. That sounds like the guy who was harassing Jamie Madrox in his original series or his self-titled mini. But basically, the three of them, the Ultimate Nullifier, Sugarcane, and Stacy X, are interrupted by the sudden arrival of Magneto.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, he wants to discipline Stacy X because he sees her as disgraceful, decadent, and embarrassingly tarnishing the collective images of Earth's remaining mutants. So Magneto trashes the room using his magnetic abilities. And this is where the Ultimate Nullifier engages in combat with Magneto. And that sounds suicidal, doesn't it? Except, while Stacy X and Sugarcane are running away, the Ultimate Nullifier subdues Magneto by hitting him with a power dampening gun and beating him with superior martial arts skills. Apparently, the Nullifier was hiding in plain sight as a bodyguard to Stacy X, and his entire mission is to stop Magneto from beating her head in. Now, this is where it gets surprising, because believe it or not, there is no other listed appearances of Stacy X in comic books. I know, it's a relatively short recap in this case, but the character has not appeared greatly in comics, and I know I may be in the minority, but I think Stacy X is a missed opportunity for Marvel. She comes from an unusual place compared to a lot of other characters. She has a power that's extremely subtle yet highly effective, and frankly, with the exception of her scaly skin making her a bit of a visual standout, she would be a heck of a Black Ops character.
Right? Or a Marauder.
Something of that nature. I mean, a character who can more or less emotionally manipulate somebody, or even befuddle them without actually touching them. It seems to me information gathering should be her forte.
Maybe that's how she beat Wolverine. Didn't actually fight him.
It could be. Well, it didn't say she beat Wolverine. It says she fought him and gave him a run for his money.
So maybe, you know how he's got like this heightened sense of smell?
I figured he'd be more vulnerable to it.
Yeah, wouldn't he just be putty in her hands?
Maybe you could argue that his healing factor might keep his brain chemistry a little more even compared to other people she encountered. Or it could...
He's very impulsive.
But Pixie gave him a run for his money, too.
You know what? For all I know, she tried to use her hormonal powers, and Wolverine just kept sneezing to the point where he couldn't stand up. I don't know. But
I think you're giving him way too much credit.
No, I think the writers give him way too much credit. To me, he ain't nothing. Um,
Well, I
however,
don't feel that way about him.
sorry, Laura Kinney forever, but still. Um, I think Stacy X could represent something quite profound if given an opportunity and a writer that gives her a decent shot. You know, she could be one of those high-level redemption stories in comics, somebody who finds a higher calling. Except, you know, it seems like everybody just rebounds her into, you know, lady of the evening type of roles.
So, how long was her run, actually?
I don't entirely know, but I remember it being short. I would say it was no longer than 15 months, as far as her run with the X-Men.
From, like, the creation of the character to when they stopped using her?
Well, no, I mean, the last time she was used was in this 2011 miniseries. However, in her initial run in X-Men, yeah, I'd say it was only about 15, maybe 16 months.
Wow. Do
Apparently
you
her
think
first
they'll ever retcon her?
I don't know, but given what Krakoa is, what it represents, and how it works, it's the opportunity to use her without overusing her. She doesn't have to be like a member of a five-man team and one of the few characters available. She can pop in and pop out as necessary in a series at this point. Yes?
I was going to say, apparently her first appearance was in...
Uncanny X-Men 399, November 2001, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Now, Marauders may be an interesting place, but that seems like more of a combative place. This character, though, would be right at home in X-Force.
Yeah, that's true too. But I mean, if for their more stealthy missions, for sneaking past guards, making them fall asleep, making them susceptible to suggestion.
She'd be great for interrogation.
Oh yeah, questioning high-value targets.
Too,
There'd be few people as good as she is. She would also fit right in with the Hellions. I mean, that half that series is about using mutants who are misaligned anyway.
Right. Yeah, I'm saying there's like tons of places that plot-wise and team-wise she'd be able to fit in. So if
you know who she
happen to regrow her, that'd be great.
You know who she'd actually fit in with now that we've talked about it this way? She would fit in pretty well as like a new team member on X Factor.
Yep.
Their entire mission is to find missing mutants or ones who haven't been resurrected on Krakoa.
And hey, along comes Miss Stacy.
Yeah. I mean, she could use a new code name. Stacy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Stacy X just doesn't roll off very well, and Ecstasy is a little too on the nose.
That's a little too 90s.
Yeah. But, like I said, I know I'm one of the few people that remembers this character from her initial run, but I remember looking at it and just going, there are so many ways this character can go. Or so many storylines that she applies to, given that her powers are very invasive yet non-damaging, and that she has a physical ability that doesn't put her on par with the X-Men's top, but at least makes her more than just Cypher.
Right.
So, I'd really like to see this character pop back up. And I know somebody's out there listening to this just going, no, you just want to see a snake girl and something small. Costume doesn't matter to me as much as just proper use of characters. And I don't know.
Besides, I don't think she has a snake skin anymore.
Well, that was as of New Warriors, but given her appearance in that Acts of Vengeance miniseries, I think she was back to being a powered character.
Right, and if they resurrect her on Krakoa, who's to say that she wouldn't have her powers again?
Well, even if they didn't have to resurrect her, all they'd have to do is introduce her to Proteus, who could fix what's wrong.
True.
I'd just like to see this character come back. I'd like to see somebody give her a mission of some sort instead of just having her go from convenience to convenience.
Yeah, maybe flesh out her backstory, give her a little bit more character development. That's just my input as a writer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And have you bothered to look up what she looked like in any of her appearances?
No, I didn't.
Tom Rainey's art is always just kind of... It visually pops to me, but his style doesn't work for a lot of people. It's kind of hard to explain. She made a couple subsequent appearances in other series where I know her initial outfit as far as the X Ranch was pretty much like a leather bustier and underwear and like some arm sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
When it came to her appearances with the X-Men, it varied a little bit. It was often like another leather bustier and hot pants and or pants with a long jacket on top.
Yes, I am looking through images now.
Yeah. A consistent look would help for the character, as well as something that didn't instantly say, I've never been a superhero before.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'd like to see the character appear in cinematics. However, that's also one of those things where I think it'd be kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're talking something more complicated than Mystique's blue skin if you had to replicate it on screen.
Mm-hmm.
This would take... I think this would drive a special effects person out of their mind.
Well,
But
to be
also,
honest,
I mean, at least... Go ahead.
I think they didn't have to go over full body blue skin. They could have gave her that white dress that we've always seen her in.
True, but
That's true.
I mean, now we're talking about Stacy X, whose look is even more reptilian.
Well, I was saying, I mean, at least she wears clothes as opposed to how they chose to portray Mystique.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Which, you're right. They should have brought back the iconic white dress, but if they're going to be painting the actress's body, we've all seen conventions where the paint comes off on the costume and it just gets muddled.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'd almost say a good role for this character if she was non-combative would be, like, helping to find roles for people on the island of Krakoa themselves.
Right, because she can read them.
Right. As well as somebody who's had a few different... She's kind of been at the top and bottom of stations in her life. She'd be an interesting person to listen, or at least have to listen to other people and what they want to do.
So wait, you're basically saying she'd be the Krakoa sorting hat?
Administrator would be a better word for it.
I thought maybe you're leaning toward making her a counselor or something.
Sorting hat.
Again, she could function in a number of roles depending on the opportunity, if a writer took her in a certain direction.
Right. And, I mean, I feel like she would be more versatile than some characters have been that have had a longer run. Maybe they're just shying away because she's a Lady of the Night.
Well,
That could...
back then, I'd probably agree with that. I mean, 2001, it was still a very frowned upon type of profession. And nowadays, with the advent of the internet and, I don't want to say sex being more discussed, but at least being less demonized nowadays, there's an opening for this character to return in a pretty major way.
Well, yeah, and they don't even have to address that part of her background if they choose to shy away from it for, audience reasons or whatever. But I don't know. I think that there's a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Let's just hope somebody picks up on her.
Dear Marvel, I got an idea.
I would not be shy about writing a letter wanting to see this character, because it seems like Jonathan Hickman, now that he's running the X-Men arm of the Marvel Universe, he is delving deep into the toy box.
So write him a letter.
I may eventually. We'll see what happens.
Maybe if enough people do, aka some of our listeners and us, maybe they'll get an idea in their head.
Yeah, you hear that, Steve? We're talking to you.
Yeah, but even if they do decide to pick it up now, we won't see anything from it for maybe another 6 to 8 months.
Minimum.
But still, I mean, I'll still be around. I'm planning on it.
All right.
That'd still be cool.
Okay. Well, I was trying to think about what to talk about next as far as X-Men, and I hit upon an interesting idea. We've talked about a lot of classic staples of the X-Men universe: Bishop, Jubilee, Angel, and now we've talked about something relatively obscure in Stacy X and Inferno even.
Mm-hmm.
I figured the right thing to do right now would be to talk about a member of the X-Men's next generation. Somebody relatively new, but has made such an indelible mark that they're pretty much synonymous with the idea of mutants.
Okay.
How would you guys feel about going over the surprisingly long and complicated history of a character born in 2003 known as Kid Omega?
Yeah.
For those who may be shaking their head a little bit, in a lot of comic books, he's simply known by his real name of Quentin Quire.
Mm-hmm.
And even though this character...
We met him in one of the recent comics we read.
The West Coast Avengers, yes. But
Yep.
imagine this. He was made in 2003, but he's already been a student, a gang leader, an X-Man, a founding member of a member of the Council of the Hellfire Club, and the host of the Phoenix.
That's a lot.
In less than 2 decades.
Resume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In less than 20 years.
Curbed his self-righteous attitude.
Oh yeah, his theme song would definitely be "I'm the Man."
Yeah, it would be. He's got a big ego.
Unfortunately, it's kind of well earned.
But it's still fun to seeing it cut down every now and then.
Yeah, but it sounded like a good thing to talk about.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd be on board.
All right. Next week it'll be Quentin Quire. Thanks very much for tuning in. I know it was a short one, but Stacy wasn't given a lot of time in the comics, but it still felt like a good conversation. Next week we talk about the next generation. Thank you very much. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
And I am Jesse.
And you have just been expertly informed.
This podcast is part of the Second Union Podcast Network. You can listen, like, and subscribe to all our podcasts by heading over to wearesecondunion.com. Thank you for listening.